This might be my favourite Christmas movie ever. And I don't mean favourite Christmas horror movie, I mean favourite Christmas movie out of anything. Hell, it's one of my favourite films ever. Gremlins is the best. There's a lot of really classic Christmas movies out there that many people consider their all-time favourite. Muppets Christmas Carol, Home Alone, It's a Wonderful Life, Die Hard, yes it counts. I know there's been some pushback to the idea that the whole Die Hard is a Christmas movie discourse that comes around every year is a deeply unoriginal thought, and yet it is. That doesn't make it less true. But for my money, as great as these movies are, and they are absolutely exceptional, every one of them, some of the best movies ever made, never mind best Christmas movies, I'd argue that none of them are as just fantastically fun as Gremlins is. They might be more Christmassy, they might hit better emotionally, they might be more action-packed or family-friendly, but none of them are as fun. This is the only film I'm covering this Christmas that I'm certain you'll already be familiar with. But just in case you haven't seen it or it's been a while, allow me to give you the lowdown. Directed by Joe Dante from a screenplay by Chris Columbus, Gremlins begins with a fella called Randall entering a, to be honest, not particularly well-aged Chinatown antique store draped and decorated in 80s Orientalism to look for a unique Christmas gift for his son Billy. While inside, he finds a small little furry animal in a cage called a mogwai. This is Gizmo, my favourite thing in all the world. He is precious, he has a wonderful singing voice, he can dance, I love him, he is my son. And I'm not the only person who thinks this creature is adorable and interesting, as Randall immediately seeks to buy it for his son to have as a pet. The store owner though, Mr. Wing, refuses, stating that the mogwai is absolutely not for sale under any circumstances, and that it comes with much responsibility and cannot be sold for any price. As Randall is leaving the store though, Mr. Wing's grandson, knowing the place is in desperate need of money, sneaks the mogwai out and sells it to him anyway, but not before telling him that there's 3 rules he absolutely must follow. Keep him out of the light, especially sunlight, as that'll kill him. Don't get him wet, and most importantly, don't under any circumstances feed him after midnight. We then meet our protagonist, Billy, Randall's son who works at the local bank, portrayed with an effortless bumbling charm by the as of then pretty unknown Zach Galligan. On returning home, Billy receives his new mogwai friend his dad has now dubbed with the name Gizmo and immediately becomes enamored with him. As am I. Unfortunately, not all mogwai are as charming as Gizmo, a fact that Billy Sharp finds out when his younger friend Pete, portrayed by 80s darling Corey Feldman, accidentally breaks one of the golden rules and spills water on the new furry friend, which causes more mogwai to spawn from the creature's back, although these ones are far more mischievous, with their leader Stripe in particular being a right little furry ball of fury. This new troublesome troop break Billy's clock one night, tricking him into feeding them after midnight, an act which creates the titular Gremlins. After eating, the mogwai form into these gross looking cocoons, and when they hatch, they've transformed into these horrible mischievous monsters with reptile-like skin and the energy of a toddler on a sugar rush wielding a machete. Though in their mogwai forms these guys were right little bastards anyway, in their gremlin form they're untamable and wild, capable of inflicting chaos on a large scale, which they do as they flee into the night and get up to all sorts of trouble. Eventually the stakes are raised when the leader Stripe manages to throw himself into a local swimming pool, creating a whole army of the little shits, who then proceed to cause even more trouble on a town-wide scale, from flinging an old lady to her death, to causing car crashes, and even eating Santa Claus. And while all this carnage is going on, it's left to Billy, his girlfriend Kate, and his new little buddy Gizmo to save his family and his town, defeat the Gremlins, and put an end to Stripe's reign of terror. I know I've already said it, but it bears repeating. This movie is so much fucking fun. Joe Dante is such a great director. I always find something to admire in his work, but that's especially true with his Gremlins movies. There's such a sense of chaos throughout both the films, but never at the expense of legibility. Everything feels fast, frantic and crazy, but yet so effortlessly playful. He's a guy who really appreciates the appeal of a B-movie vibe and the joy of cartoon comedy. The kind of person who could, in complete earnestness, shoot someone slipping on a banana peel and somehow make it work. When he first began in the industry, it was working for the low-budget legend Roger Corman on Hollywood Boulevard, a film that was made as a bet between John Davison and Corman to see who could make the cheapest film ever for New World Pictures. And those roots seem to bleed out in all of Dante's work, even as he became more accomplished as a filmmaker. They're fully on show here for sure. Gremlins has B-movie sensibilities all over it. From its zany premise to its classic horror-esque goopy gross practical effects. Its anarchic edge and just its overall focus on entertainment and spectacle over drama. That's not to say the film isn't thematically rich though. If you're watching Gremlins just for the joyous chaos of it all, you absolutely can do that, and you will have an absolutely brilliant time. But there's a little more cooking under the hood than it first might appear. Through its tongue-in-cheek black comedy, the film takes a very clear aim at the over-commercialization of Christmas, while also throwing in some good digs at white colonialism along the way. I mean, straight away, before we even get into the nitty-gritty of analysing scenes, the whole film in of itself feels like a big fuck you to the kind of notoriously cheesy nature of Christmas movies as a whole. This could have had the tone of something like, say, E.T. with a Christmas filter. It certainly starts off that way. A boy meets his enchantingly magical and merchandise-friendly new buddy, but instead of going down that route, it instead turns into something akin to a violent Looney Tunes episode. But even besides just the tone, there's so much more here that blatantly references and acknowledges these ideas. The entire catalyst for the movie is Billy's father Randall taking something from an Asian shopkeep he has no business owning, just because, as he puts it, I gotta have him, and for no other reason than it would be a cool Christmas present for his son. Which is a mad thing to say about a living animal from a different country you have no idea how to take care of and 5 minutes ago didn't even know existed. Yeah, you can argue the grandson does agree to sell the Mogwai in the end, but I'd suggest this only cements the theme further, as at this point, Randall knows from Mr. Wing that he shouldn't be taking the creature, but Wing's grandson is desperate and needs money that Randall has. And so this rare magical thing becomes a commodity, simply because it has to for their financial survival. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Randall as a character is a bad guy. I feel the need to say that, otherwise comments will probably yell at me since he comes across as kind of a lovable family man and people will say I'm reading him all wrong. I'm not making some judgment on his character. I'm just saying that the theme of the text is Americans meddling in and commercializing things they have no right to meddle with and commercialize. If that wasn't enough to sell you on this idea, earlier in the same scene, Randall even walks into this Chinese antique store, clearly decorated and stocked with, admittedly very stereotypical, Chinese wares, and immediately breaks into a sales pitch to try to get him to stock his latest ridiculous invention, with its flashy corporate American product name, the Bathroom Buddy, a name you could be sure would be followed by at least one exclamation mark on its brightly coloured packaging. He's well-meaning and passionate, but this garish thing built on the 80s American design principles of excess, you know, he's all like, it can do this, and this, and this, but wait, there's more, clearly holds absolutely no place in a store that looks like this. All throughout the film, there's smatterings of this anti-corporate, anti-capitalistic, anti-colonialist, and anti-greed sentiment. A great example can be found in the form of the secondary antagonist, Mrs. Deagle, the rich local woman with ties to the bank who in her introductory scene is shown turning away a mother with 2 starving children begging for a payment extension. To follow up this, her immediate next act is to attempt to have Billy's dog put down, because the dog allegedly broke her imported Bavarian snowman ornament. And this is why it's totally okay to cheer when the Gremlins fling her out of a window later in the movie. But let's just think about that again, shall we? Notice the dialogue isn't that the dog broke her snowman ornament. It's specifically that he broke her imported Bavarian snowman ornament. The issue isn't that her garden is now less festive for her, it's that it has one less status symbol. She doesn't care so much about losing a small aspect of Christmas that meant something to her, so much as losing the ability to display her wealth through a needlessly expensive product. There's actually even a deleted scene where Kate explains to Billy that Mrs. Deagle closed down a factory, causing most of the town to lose their jobs, and then took advantage of that, knowing that these people were struggling, by forcing the bank to foreclose on all their mortgages so she can sell the land. So you know, again, totally okay to cheer when she gets flung from that window. Now obviously this scene isn't in the final picture, but having seen it, I'm pretty sure it just got cut for pacing rather than thematic issues, as it's clear with the making the scene the filmmakers wanted to say something here, but a scene explaining some underhanded mortgage drama definitely takes away from the film's frenetic energy. They do still manage to squeeze in a definitive statement in the final picture though. Right at the end, when just about everything is wrapped up, Mr. Wing returns to retrieve Gizmo and lectures Randall, and to be honest, most of us in the audience, about this take and take mentality, stating, "You do with Mogwai what your society has done with all of nature's gifts. You do not understand, you are not ready." And Randall, bless his heart, responds to this telling off the only true and American way you can, by apologising with a commercial novelty product and gifting Wing a smokeless ashtray. Perfect. No notes. And here's the thing with Gremlins. It certainly has all this theming beneath its silly, chaotic surface, and that does enhance the movie and make it a more rich and full experience. But let's be honest, the main draw here is these goofy little twats. Gremlins puppets and animatronics, both on a technical level and in characterization, are fucking excellent. Still to this day, I'll argue these guys are some of the coolest, most fun, and most unique practical effects and props in cinema history. The amount of life and energy they manage to bring into these things is nothing short of joyous, and this personality lends itself to so many memorable scenes. Everyone remembers the gremlin in the microwave, and everyone remembers the gremlin carol singers. And then there's the gremlin Snow White sing-along, the gremlin bar, the gremlin in the blender, the gremlin in the Christmas tree, the showdown with Stripe, Gizmo in the remote control car. It's just a sea of memorable moments ramping up in frequency and freneticism until a nice big goopy gory practical effects driven spectacular villain death and the credits roll. And the design on these things, my god, they're just flawless. Gizmo is the cutest thing in the world that isn't my girlfriend. He's the original Grogu, and for my money, infinitely more adorable. Fuck Baby Yoda, this is a Gizmo household. And in juxtaposition with him, the Gremlins are just the right level of ugly. Like, they're ugly enough to not be cute, but not so ugly as to not be, let's be honest, really fucking cool, right? Like, these guys are menacing enough to be monstrous, but they're also just super rad. They're just so iconic, there's nothing else like them, and there hasn't been anything like them since. And don't you dare say the critters, just don't. They're not as cool as interesting, I refuse to entertain the comparison. They're all so wholly unique from each other, which is no easy task really when you're designing a creature that's going to be the basis for like hundreds of the same species within the movie. But they seem to use the design principles of cartoon characters. And it goes so far in helping you differentiate them all. You know how the Lion King CG movie will have like the 3 hyenas, and they all look basically identical to one another. But then you look at the original animated version, and you can tell them all apart at just a passing glance. The Gremlins work like the latter. Every single one in the film has a unique quality, something about them that gives them their own identity and character. And it doesn't just help fill the film with a sense of variety, but also a sense of clarity. There's never any losing the main villain in the crowd of characters because you know he's the one with that awesome mohawk. It's all these little complexities that make the film feel absolutely alive with energy. I'm sure throughout this movie they'll have recycled the puppets and animatronics at some point for separate scenes, but it never feels like it because of stuff like this. Even the music rules, and not only does it slap, it's perfectly thematically appropriate to the tone the film delivers. The main theme by Jerry Goldsmith is fantastic, both as chaotic and frenetic feeling, yet as tightly composed as the movie itself. Just divine work. Top marks, lads. I am in love with this movie, and that's a big reason I wanted it to be my big last video for the year. I'm such a sucker for it that I even downloaded the game Multiverses. Absolutely hated how floaty it felt and deleted it, but now that it's got Gizmo and Stripe in it, you know I've gone and got it again. That's not pertinent information at all. I just need you all to understand how much of an absolute hold this film has over me. If any of you are long-time followers and watched Wholesome Halloween 2, you'll remember my discussion from the Friday the 13th 6 episode about what it means to be a perfect movie. I'm not going to repeat it in full, but to reiterate the core idea for those unfamiliar, perfect, I believe, is not an objective metric, or even a measurement of quality. Perfect is a vibe, it's a feeling, it's an energy, a tingle in your brain that says, yeah, this film is perfect to me. Perfect. It's Gremlins. And that, my friends, was our last video for the season. Now before I completely finish and sign off for the year, I do have some honourable mentions. Just for the sake of transparency, as much as I adore Gremlins, this last episode wasn't an easy pick, and was actually a toss-up between this and Krampus. And I just want to mention that because I think Krampus is bloody great. It's one of my favourite Christmas movies ever, and you should all check that out too. Just want that on record, because this is the last vid before I stop talking about Christmas movies, and I didn't want this season to end without recommending you all check out Krampus. Especially since, of these two, Krampus is definitely the lesser known film. The only reason Gremlins got the edge over it is because 1, I think I like Gremlins that little bit more. 2, while Gremlins got a mention in my 2020 video I say The Wonderful World of Christmas Horror, Krampus was actually featured as one of the chosen movies I spotlighted at the back end of the video, so I've already gave it a little bit more focus on the channel. And 3, I already did a vid on Gremlins 2 for Wholesome Halloween, and the completionist in me just feels like I really need to do the other one now too before my brain can ever rest again. So yeah, Gremlins got the pick, but be sure to watch Krampus. It's awesome. 2 other honourable mentions I really wanted to cover as well would be firstly Red Snow, a Christmas vampire comedy horror I saw at a film festival I was a part of that I absolutely adored and would have loved to do a video on, but unfortunately I only thought about that really late in the game because, I'll be honest, this was a very last minute project, and I only started writing these things the week before the first episode was due to release. So I didn't really have time to deliberate and consider over my movie choices or swap stuff out if something had already been written. But trust me, it's great and you should check it out. And I want to mention this one especially because it's super unknown and there should be more eyes on it. And secondly, I also wanted to cover Christmas Bloody Christmas, this year's new killer animatronic Santa movie from Joe Bago, who previously directed Bliss, which I actually think is a super underrated horror, so I'd been very much looking forward to his new effort. This one I only didn't cover despite it being new and therefore very algorithm friendly, because as of right now, it's not even out yet. By the time you're watching this video it will be, but at the time of the recording, there is no way for me to access this movie. And waiting till it released to then make the video might not have left enough time to write, record, edit and upload before the Christmas time, with it coming out so late in December and me still having to work my day jobs up till Christmas Eve. Also, I could have waited all that time and it might have just sucked and I might not have wanted to do a video on it. Maybe it does suck, I don't know. Does it suck? Is it good? I couldn't tell you. You tell me though in the comments if you've seen it and you think it's worth me checking it out. Oh, and there's one teeny tiny final recommendation. Play Gremlins 2 on the NES. I'm telling you, that shit holds up. Anyway, to paraphrase the great Blink-182, we've had Halloween on Christmas, and though in the night we may wish this never ends, this has unfortunately concluded our killer Christmas season. Sorry again that we weren't able to have a full wholesome Halloween this year, but I hope this little stocking filler helps make up for that. Thank you for your patience with me and for sticking with the channel. I know this year has been pretty turbulent in terms of upload schedule and content due to some deeply unfortunate personal circumstances. Speaking of, I'll not linger on this too long, but I do just want to give a very heartfelt thank you on video to everyone who supported and shared my dad's memorial charity fund. That thing raised more than 10 times our target goal when all was said and done, and a huge thank you to all who supported me throughout the Face of Horror competition that ran earlier this year, which although I didn't win and can't see the exact numbers, based on how well I did do and how many of the stats I was able to see when the competition was running, I'm certain also raised a huge deal of money through the charity vote system, so thank you for all of you who supported that. Thank you also so much to my patrons who have been the absolute lifeline keeping this channel going this past year, as without their support there's no way I'd have the finances or motivation to continue with this stuff. Skeleton Christmas jumpers don't come cheap it seems. And a final thank you just to those of you who subscribe and watch these videos. You have no idea how much I appreciate this little community we've built, and I really appreciate you all letting me have this platform and just letting me talk about my interests and passions in the kind of way I always want to but don't really otherwise get to entertain. The idea that my silly little thoughts on horror movies are heard and embraced by literally thousands of people is a privilege that is never lost on me. You all rule. And on that note, I'm all done. You know the drill at this point. Please like the video, subscribe to my OnlyDans at the red button below. If you want to really throw some support my way and help the channel, please check out the Patreon link in the description. But more importantly than all that, have a great day. Have a great holiday season. And above all else, I hope you all have an absolutely killer Christmas. See you in the new year.